what we found is that we decided to launch this Indiegogo campaign, this crowdsourced funding campaign, where we were kind of getting people to hear about the film through Facebook and to say, go to this website. So the website that you can go to is Indiegogo, or www.indiegogo.com/mixed-match. And watch a video, like watch basically I tell you about the film, and then there's a trailer, right? So we wanted to get the awareness out earlier than later, because to make a documentary can take 4 years. When I made my last documentary, One Big Happy Family, it took 4 years. And that's a long time. So when you have these patients who are searching and needing a donor now, in 4 years' time, it might be too late for them. So we wanted to make sure that we could get at least a little bit of the message out, have them explain a little bit about their cause, and essentially, basically, just drive some awareness to it now, right? And if people were compelled, to help contribute or donate to the project, that helps us out, because that allows us to be able to go out and get more stories, right? Collect more stories. And the problem with documentary filmmaking nowadays is that there just isn't as much funding. Funding sources are drying up, so the filmmakers are having to get a little bit more resourceful. And in a way, this crowdsourced funding, we're able to allow people to understand the issues associated with our topic, but at the same time, they might feel compelled to become part of the film too, because they want to help. And that's where we're collecting the contributions to help with the filming process. So it's sort of that, the idea that we're able to raise the awareness now. People have written down that they've been compelled to go out and join the registries, which is like, if one person does that, we've done our job, right? If one person does that and they save a life, then that's all I could have ever asked for. So essentially, it's basically, this film is designed to help raise awareness, to help save lives. And this documentary isn't just about like, yes, this is how it is, this is how it's presented, go out and donate and join the registries. We want to explore all the sides, because ethnicity, race, are very controversial subjects. And for a lot of people, they don't like to talk about how identity and how ethnicity plays a role in how we perceive ourselves. And when you think about that, and in our communities in Vancouver, how we do have sort of the Chinese Canadian community, we have the South Asian Canadian community, we have the Japanese Canadian community, it looks at sort of how do these Canadians, or these communities, identify themselves as Canadian, as being from a particular country of origin, etc. And now, as we're blending and mixing, we get that idea of race in medicine. Like this is an issue of ethnicity. This is an issue of our backgrounds, our history, our heritage, right? And so how do we perceive that? And so for a lot of people, it can be controversial. Like some people have said, well, if this is the case, should we be, mixing as much as we're mixing, right? But my argument to that is, of course we should be, because essentially these diseases are very rare, right? And of course, if we get more awareness out of it and more people join the registries, then we have a better chance of, being able to solve the problem. Because bone marrow transplants are some of the only ways to cure certain diseases like leukemia, right? Or MDS. So sometimes you need to have, this dialogue and discussion. And I think this is what these films are meant to do, is to create this dialogue and discussion between people, so they can have educated, safe environments to talk about the issues that we're trying to present. And after that, if they feel so compelled, it doesn't matter what ethnic group you're from, or if you're male or female, people should sign up to the registry. And I think the ages that are accepted are 17 to 60 in Canada. And I know there's a big push for 17 to 35-year-old males in Canada, because for some reason doctors like those stem cells better, or their bone marrow better, because it has less of a chance of graft versus host disease, I think. So, but that's what I mean. It doesn't really matter. What it boils down to is we're hoping everybody just signs up to the registry. We're hoping it just creates the awareness, and people can make up their minds from there. So.
We now have what's called the HLA type, human leukocyte antigen. This is the tissue type of a person. And the tissue types have been used to try to match people for transplants. Turns out that by genetics, 1/4 of the siblings are identical. And this is the way in which bone marrow transplants have been done from siblings who are exactly the same, because they inherited exactly the same chromosome from the parents. Oftentimes there is no identical sibling. So in bone marrow transplants, the problem had been how to find other people who might be matched. Every area has a different frequency of tissue types. So for example, you could say in Caucasians, it's interesting that Italians have a slightly different tissue type from the French and from the English and the Scotch. So in the same way, in Asia, there's a whole other set of HLA antigens. There's nothing that's unique, but the frequency with which these occur differs in all the different races. And so that means that if you want to find somebody that's identical, first place to look is the same race. The problem becomes complicated when there's a mixture of races. The HLA type is also very complex. It's determined by one chromosome, that's part's easy. But within this chromosome, well, there's at least 5 so-called loci, 5 spots. And each of these spots can vary. So in the B locus, there's something like 500, 600 different types. In the C locus, there's, I don't know, maybe 200 types. In the D locus, and so on. So at 5 of these loci, there's all these variants that can exist. And so you can see, if you take a random person, it's highly unlikely that you'll get 2 people who are exactly alike. But one of the ways that people talk about matching is these are the 5 loci. You have two types in each of them, because you're getting A locus from your father, A locus from your mother, B locus from your father, B locus from your mother. So altogether, if you're looking at 5 spots, there's 10 different possibilities. So sometimes people talk about 10 out of 10 means all 10 of them are matched, or 9 out of 10, that means that they're almost exactly matched, except one of them is not matched. And for unrelated donors, the attempt is to try to get as many of those matched as possible.